Uncover the amazing secret weapon. 7 unexpected steps to transform your self-confidence forever. Sarah clutched the fraying edges of the letter in her trembling hands, her heart racing as she tried to process the cascade of words, revealing a legacy she had never known. What she thought was an ordinary afternoon of sifting through dusty boxes took a sharp turn when her grandmother's voice echoed off the yellowed pages. A prominent attorney, once a figure of advocacy and strength, now reduced to a sepulchre of forgotten whispers and encumbering shadows. Would it always be this way? She felt the crushing weight of inadequacy pulling her down, casting doubts on her every desire and dream. Even the simple task of answering phones at the law firm felt insurmountable at times. Each ring brought with it a reminder that she was just a cog in a machine, sacrificing her own aspirations to simply get by. Thoughts swirled, teasing a glimmer of ambition buried deep within. Could she follow in her grandmother's footsteps? No. A flicker of hope was quickly snuffed out by a rush of anxiety. Who was she kidding? A single mother, with rent due tomorrow, chasing dreams that felt impossibly out of reach. Feeling the familiar sting of stingy skepticism from friends, those heavy clinks of judgment when she spoke of going back to school set in. Was it right to want more when her daughter needed her? Could she afford to fail? Suddenly, the prospect of night classes glimmered like an unattainable star, beckoning her closer but also distancing her further from her responsibilities. What would happen if she pursued this path only to find herself tongue-tied in the courtroom like so many moments before? The fear of being bad or letting down those she cherished loomed large, paralyzing her spirit in a castle of self-doubt. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The first night of class loomed closer like a reckoning. University hallways echoed with laughter and chatter, a stark contrast to her solitary life as she maneuvered between work and motherhood. Each face was radiant with possibilities, while Sarah's heart thudded against her ribs, shackled to a gnawing insecurity that threatened to strangle her resolve. Then she met Professor Thompson, whose kind eyes held genuine belief in her potential. Yet, the warmth of his encouragement was met with turmoil within. Could she really be worthy of such faith when she questioned herself at every turn? But as the weeks progressed, so did her ambitions. Yet not everyone was cheering. A rival emerged, a relentless force punctuating her journey with cruel sabotage. Just when she took a step forward, they were there, dragging her 5 steps back into the abyss of self-doubt. The conflict mounted, tension mounting like a crushing tide. Would she let them shatter the fragile wall of confidence she built, or would she confront this nemesis head-on? Each encounter raised the stakes. As dark revelations threatened to upend her life, secrets brewed in the edges of her family history like shadows in the corner of a dimly lit room. The echoes of her grandmother's plight lingered in the air, desperate yet stolid. Would she unravel these mysteries or lose everything? The decision weighed on her heart like a leaden anchor. The finish line blurred, and a familiar pang of despair gripped at her throat. Sarah stood at the precipice, a tumult of emotions crashing against her core as she faced the storm head-on. In this fight for self, who would win, self-doubt or reinvention? The week began with a burst of energy, as Sarah resolved to reclaim her narrative. The sense of dread that had cloaked her was met with defiance. She took a deep breath, vowing to disregard the toxic skepticism that haunted her every step. Walking into the law classroom, she noticed a flicker of determination inside her. Maybe the shadows of her fears could be transformed into pillars of strength. With Professor Thompson's voice resonating in her thoughts, she decided to speak up during discussions. Initially, the words caught in her throat like jagged stones, but each class brought an incremental shift, a gradual chiseling away of the ice that encased her timid aspirations. Perhaps it was the thrill of voicing her opinion or the knowledge that she was more than just a mother or an employee at the law office. She was a student and aspiring attorney. As she participated, a new Sarah began to emerge, one that had been eclipsed for too long. However, her rival, Rebecca, thrived on the energy of competition, lurking in the periphery, sharpening her claws against Sarah's growing confidence. Each pointed remark aimed to dismantle the foundation Sarah was painstakingly erecting. You should stick to answering phones. The courtroom might not be for you, Rebecca sneered after class one day. Instead of crumbling, a flicker of defiance ignited within Sarah. The words stung, but they also fueled an internal fire. Days dwindled into weeks, and the burdens of life pressed harder yet. Juggling schoolwork, her daughter's needs, and the struggle to keep her head above water was exhausting. However, in the darkest moments, Sarah discovered unexpected reservoirs of resilience. Midnight oil burned as she crafted essays. Her textbooks sprawled across the small kitchen table, littered with reminders of her ambitions. She found herself absorbed in the legal concepts, moments of clarity piercing through the fog of exhaustion. What struck Sarah most was not merely grasping the law, but unveiling her voice within it. She didn't just want to pass exams. She wanted to advocate fiercely, as her grandmother had done. Bit by bit, she reshaped her self-image, allowing past discomfort to morph into raw determination. One evening, as she prepared for another class, her daughter's innocent question knocked the breath from Sarah's lungs. "Mom, why do you go to school if it makes you tired?" For the first time, Sarah paused, contemplating her motivation. Her desire to become an attorney was not simply a personal ambition. It was about modeling courage and tenacity for her daughter, showing her that dreams could be pursued even against all odds. With this newfound clarity, Sarah made a decision. She would confront Rebecca, recognize the rivalry for what it was, a destructive force that fed off doubt and insecurity. "This is my journey, and I own it," she resolved, heart pounding at the thought. Today was not just about overcoming Rebecca. It was about dismantling the specter of fear and stepping firmly into her own narrative, regardless of outside judgment. As Sarah approached Rebecca after class, a cocktail of dread and determination bubbled within her. The moment felt electric, a catalyst poised to reshape her understanding of conflict. "We can either continue to undermine each other, or we can elevate our work together. I choose the latter," Sarah declared. Witnessing the flicker of surprise cross Rebecca's face was oddly exhilarating. The brewing confrontation was not just about her. It was about unfurling the layers of confidence she had begun to forge. Sarah had, for the first time, taken a stand on her own behalf. But as Rebecca's eyes narrowed, a new wave of tension flooded the room, one that hinted at a far deeper rivalry than either of them had recognized so far. Sarah felt the impending storm. Would this moment kindle friendship or fuel the fire of animosity? With the door to this new chapter swinging open, she stood, heart racing, on the brink of discovering just how deeply her resolve could be tested. The aftermath of Sarah's confrontation with Rebecca echoed in her mind, stretching moments into an anxious silence. Daring to challenge her rival had ignited not just a flicker of defiance but also a tempest of uncertainty. What had begun as a pathway toward mutual respect could easily devolve into a battleground. As she returned to her seat, worried thoughts swirled. Was she capable of maintaining this newly claimed strength, or would she slip back into the shadows? That night, the ambience of her tiny apartment loomed heavy with anticipation. The dim kitchen light illuminated stacks of textbooks, the silent witnesses to her struggles and aspirations. She immersed herself in her assignments, attempting to compartmentalize fear and focus on the law. With her daughter nestled peacefully in her room, she often skimmed through legal principles without entirely absorbing them, the haze of anxiety creating a smokescreen shielding her from clarity. Yet, once the clock struck midnight and fatigue began to creep in, a fleeting thought pushed through the fatigue. Resilience. The very essence she had tapped into before her confrontation with Rebecca seemed like a distant memory, buried beneath layers of uncertainty and apprehension. Remembering her daughter's innocent inquiry propelled her forward. What did she want to demonstrate to her? Would she be a role model who succumbed to doubt and fear? No, Sarah decided. She would not just rise. she would thrive. The following day, with a sense of conviction, Sarah entered the classroom, determined to channel her insecurities into an unwavering desire for growth. The atmosphere was electric, with students buzzing about upcoming presentations. Professor Thompson invited her to share recent legal developments, and Sarah seized the opportunity. Each word she spoke became a stepping stone, breaking down her previous fears and transforming the weight of judgment into a shield against negativity. In time, as she elaborated on her thoughts, an unexpected realization struck her. Others were not just spectators. They were engaged, influenced by her words. The growing tension shifted, and she sensed the dynamic between her and Rebecca altering subtly. Instead of hostility, curiosity brewed in the air. This realization not only bolstered her self-esteem but also sparked a contemplative dialogue within her. Could this rivalry transition into something productive, perhaps even collaborative? Yet her relief was short-lived. As her confidence swelled, Rebecca approached her post-lecture, masking her emotions behind a tightly controlled facade. You really think you can just waltz in here, acting like the top dog because you figured out how to speak? Her words dripped with sarcasm, but Sarah noticed a faint quiver in her voice, an echo of vulnerability. Instead of retreating to a defensive position, Sarah confronted the challenge with maturity. I'm here not to compete but to grow. If you need help, I'm willing to lend a hand. Surprise flickered across Rebecca's face, revealing the tension layers that had clouded her demeanor. Sarah's simple offer was a strategic risk, one that could either bridge the gap or deepen the divide. In the days that followed, Sarah immersed herself in her studies with renewed fervor. Each interaction with classmates became a playful test of the confidence she was steadily building. Yet, lurking beneath her vibrancy was the nagging apprehension of Rebecca's potential retaliation, her rival's fierce determination to reclaim her standing. Sarah found herself torn between establishing a genuine rapport and being on high alert for future attacks. Just when she thought she could navigate this evolving relationship, a chance encounter after class thrust Sarah into deeper contemplation. A mutual acquaintance casually remarked about the upcoming mock trial competition, suggesting that perhaps both Sarah and Rebecca would benefit from collaborating on a team. The tension flooded back, but it held an intriguing promise, a test of her limits, a challenge that required her to redefine not just her enemies but her allies as well. Would Sarah have the courage to step into this unfamiliar territory and embrace the potential for collaboration? The competing impulses swelled inside her, and she sensed that crossing this next threshold could redefine her journey completely. Sarah's mind raced with the implications of the invitation to partner with Rebecca. The competition loomed ahead as both an opportunity and a possible disaster. The thought of appearing weak or vulnerable around Rebecca felt like an anchor weighing her down. Could she really trust someone who had always been in direct competition with her? Despite the fear, a flicker of excitement illuminated a path. She had yet to consider a challenge that could genuinely transform her experience. The competition was set for 2 weeks hence, and the clock was ticking. Each day in class intensified her internal debate. As Sarah delved into the intricacies of trial law and courtroom decorum, her apprehensions contended with the prospect of potential collaboration. Could she harness this turmoil into something productive instead of allowing it to paralyze her? One afternoon, they were tasked with working through case analyses. When Rebecca approached for help, Sarah felt her heartbeat quickening. Would this lead to a breakthrough, or would she be setting herself for betrayal? Let us lay our cards on the table, Sarah suggested, animating the effort. If we're going to do this, we should be honest about our strengths and weaknesses. As Rebecca hesitated, Sarah recalled her own time battling insecurity. She pushed through this knot of doubt and continued, her eyes locked onto Rebecca's. I cannot only learn from you. You can learn from me too. Rebecca's expression shifted, her walls momentarily crumbling. Fine. I'm a great writer, but I struggle with public speaking. I can help with that, Sarah affirmed, feeling an unexpected spark of empowerment. With each passing moment, she perceived the vestiges of their rivalry blurring slightly. They shared strategies, dissected cases, and laughed over shared frustrations. The more Sarah focused on mutual growth, the more her anxieties receded into the background. Yet, the true test awaited her in the courtroom simulation just a week before the competition. During practice, Rebecca raised her hand, her voice firm yet tinged with stress. "Sarah, you need to take the lead in the opening statement. You're better at connecting with the jury." Tension enveloped the room. As the other team members observed, Sarah felt like the spotlight had shifted towards her unceremoniously. Would the echo of their history come crashing down around her? The urge to decline surged within her. Was this a setup? But the earlier trust they had developed loomed in her mind, giving her the push she needed. Her thoughts crystallized into resolve. "All right, let us craft something memorable together." When the moment came during practice, Sarah stood with her chest open, her voice resonating as she shared their case with conviction. When she glanced at Rebecca, she found a measure of support and encouragement reflected in her gaze. The words flowed, and the confidence she had been seeking began to emerge organically. It was liberating, a revelation that collaboration could create a higher collective goal. As their rehearsal drew to a close, Sarah found herself filled with adrenaline and doubt in equal parts. Among her teammates, there was a palpable sense of anticipation. They were backing her, and in turn, she backed them. Did Rebecca see this as a shared triumph? But as they finalized their strategy, murmurs around the room hinted at a mounting skepticism. A fellow teammate commented on Sarah's leadership, opening the floodgates to whispered doubts about whether she could sustain this role. Now, she was faced not just with her past apprehensions but additional pressures that could unravel everything she had worked for. Sarah's heart pounded as she wrestled with her emotions. Would this challenge propel her further into a new self, or would it unearth the insecurities she fought so hard to suppress? The path before her seemed like a tightrope. One wrong step could send her tumbling into uncertainty. But she could not turn back now. The moment loomed near for her to either embrace this leap into authentic selfhood or step back into the shadows. Suffocated by doubt, would Sarah find the balance to navigate this new arena, or would the whispers around her soon drown her resolve? The choice weighed heavily on her, but one thing was clear: she was about to confront not just her rivalry with Rebecca, but the deeper conflicts within herself. The day of the courtroom simulation arrived, and Sarah felt turbulent emotions swirling within her like a storm. She had practiced her opening statement countless times, refining every gesture and inflection. Yet as she prepared behind the curtain, self-doubt clung to her like a second skin. The whispers from her teammates replayed in her mind, each echo amplifying her anxiety, and she began to wonder if her earlier confidence was nothing more than a fleeting moment. Rebecca approached her, her brow furrowed with concern. "You got this, Sarah. Just remember, we're a team." There was sincerity in her eyes, a shared vulnerability that reassured Sarah. Yet, as the curtain began to rise, that reassurance morphed into pressure. What if she failed to deliver? What if her best wasn't enough? The courtroom simulation unfolded like a double-edged sword. As she stood before a mock jury, remembering her commitment to the collaboration, the weight of their shared effort ignited a flicker of determination. Each juror's gaze felt like a spotlight burning into her skin. Her heart raced as she began to speak, her rehearsed lines tumbling from her mouth with an urgency that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. But then it happened. A flaw in her delivery, an awkward pause that shattered her rhythm. Panic surged through her veins, and she struggled to regain control over her words. In that split second of vulnerability, her mind blanked, and she could feel the skepticism permeating the room like a thick fog. Was this the embarrassment that would define her? She glanced at Rebecca, who gestured encouragingly from her position. The moment sparked an unexpected light within Sarah. Instead of surrendering to the suffocating weight of doubt, she decided to pivot. "You may think you know how this case will unfold, but let me show you the real story," she declared, injecting an earnestness that resonated even with her own insecurities. The energy shifted as she described the intricacies of the case, interweaving her passion with the facts. With each passing moment, her confidence surged back, grounding her as she skillfully navigated through every argument. The courtroom, once a source of dread, transformed into a stage she had unexpectedly claimed for herself. The gasps of the jury and rising notes of approval from her teammates invigorated her, echoing in the recesses of her resolve. Later that evening, Sarah reflected on her performance. The simulation had been more than a test of her legal skills. It had revealed something profound about herself. In the face of uncertainty, she discovered that she could harness fear, using it as fuel rather than a weakness. There was a strength in vulnerability she hadn't seen before. Yet, as she savored the moment, a sense of foreboding crept in. The competition was still ahead, and that meant she would have to face her greatest fear yet. Not just the competition with Rebecca, but her own internal conflicts and insecurities. Would she be able to persevere, or would the familiar shadows of self-doubt return to cloud her vision? As the days ticked away until the competition, Sarah knew she needed to explore the depths of her newfound confidence. But answers didn't come easily. This was a journey fraught with challenges and the specter of her past present at every turn. One question lingered, growing louder in her mind as the competition approached. What would happen when the stakes were raised and confidence gave way to doubt? Would she rise again, or would she find herself at the brink of losing everything she had fought to build? The weeks leading up to the competition brought an unsettling rhythm to Sarah's life. It wasn't just the looming deadlines or the pressure to perform. It was the internal battle that erupted whenever she attempted to find solace. She felt unmoored, as if each day brought new challenges that threatened to undermine her hard-earned confidence. In an effort to regain some control, she adopted a routine. Morning runs became a sacred ritual, a way to clear her mind and build physical resilience. Each stride felt like a salve to her doubts, as the steady rhythm of her heartbeat drowned out the whispers of insecurity. She reflected on the courtroom simulation, focusing on the surge of empowerment she had felt as she rejected fear and took charge of her narrative. Perhaps it wasn't just a fluke. Maybe it was a pattern she could replicate. Yet, there were still those moments when the weight of hesitant thoughts crept back in. Late one night, with the soft glow of her desk lamp illuminating a sea of notes and case details, Sarah found herself staring at the pages, each one becoming a reminder of the potential failure that lay ahead. What if she faltered when it mattered most? What if her voice shook, or her arguments crumbled under scrutiny? The uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. Hearing a soft knock at her door jolted her from this spiral. It was Rebecca, who ventured in with an undeniable spark. Without the pretense of competition, they shared stories and strategies late into the night. Rebecca's insights were more than technical. They were deeply personal, highlighting their shared vulnerabilities. In that moment of camaraderie, Sarah felt a connection that transcended rivalry, igniting a realization. She wasn't alone in her fight against fear. Drawing from their exchange, Sarah resolved to dig deeper into what composed her confidence. She started to analyze her preparation methods. Was she merely memorizing information, or was she finding genuine meaning in each case she studied? The next day, she delved into the narratives behind the legal clauses she was to present, understanding not just the law, but also the human experiences entwined with each case. This shift was seismic. In wrestling with these stories, her motivation transformed from mere success to genuine advocacy. She embraced her role not just as a competitor but as a representative of the individuals her arguments could impact. With that realization came a renewed determination, an eagerness to convey not only facts but also the emotional gravitas that could sway a jury. As the competition date neared, the tension mounted. With every practice session and feedback from Rebecca, Sarah felt the ebbs and flows of confidence more acutely. Each session illuminated her progress but also highlighted her weaknesses. That contradiction forced her to confront her flaws directly, to question not only her performance but also her identity as a burgeoning lawyer. One afternoon, while practicing in front of a mirror, Sarah felt the familiar prickle of self-doubt returning. It whispered insidiously, what if she still wasn't enough? Just then, she caught her reflection, and with deliberate intention, she delivered her opening statement again, louder and more passionately than before. The act felt like an invocation, a summons to the very core of her being. She recalled why she was drawn to the law, to champion those without a voice. In that moment of clarity, she realized that confidence was less about being flawless and more about standing firm in her purpose, while embracing her imperfections. She wasn't just a contestant. She was a fighter equipped with stories that could change lives. Her thoughts spun with purpose, and the question no longer felt daunting as it had before, but rather electrifying. What if this competition could be the launchpad for her journey as an advocate? As anticipation clawed at her consciousness, she understood now that she wouldn't just be competing. She would be daring to unveil a part of herself that had long remained hidden. And as her resolve crystallized, one unsettling thought crystallized in the back of her mind. What would happen if the truth of her journey, both its struggles and triumphs, was laid bare for all to see? The days slid into a blur as the competition approached, each moment ripe with potential yet fraught with tension. Sarah found herself oscillating between bursts of enthusiasm and lingering doubts. Some mornings began with a serene sense of purpose, her feet pounding against pavement, echoing the resolve she felt building within her. Other days, dark clouds loomed overhead, casting long shadows of uncertainty that threatened to eclipse her determination. As she entered the law library one afternoon, the quiet ambient sound of pages turning mixed with the aroma of old leather and polished wood. Here, she sought refuge in her legal research, barricading her mind against the chaos outside. Navigating through case law had become both an escape and an exploration. For every case related to the competition, Sarah infused her own reflections and experiences, mapping her thoughts across the legal concepts. She began to see both the inherent flaws in the law and the ways it could be harnessed for justice. However, this intellectual engagement was undercut by an unsettling realization. Despite her deeper understanding of the cases, a nagging question lingered. Was she doing enough? The fear of inadequacy crept in, wearing her down like a fine sandpaper. What if her arguments lacked depth, or her presentation fell flat against adversaries who were more experienced or polished? Then came a moment of clarity that shifted her perspective. In the middle of an analysis, she stumbled upon a case that echoed her own history. It resonated with the stories of individuals she knew, stories of struggles against an often indifferent legal system. This connection ignited an urgency within her. She realized that the stakes weren't simply about winning a competition. They were about conveying the essence of someone's truth, fighting for the voiceless. Motivated by this epiphany, Sarah devised a new strategy. She would not only memorize her arguments but would intertwine them with the stories that lay beneath them. Each fact became a stepping stone toward a narrative that was both compelling and relatable. The courtroom simulation that had once seemed like a contest transformed into a stage for advocacy, a spotlight where each spoken word could illuminate a hidden reality. As she prepared, Sarah began incorporating more dynamic techniques into her practice sessions. Instead of standing stiffly, she embraced movement, allowing her body to mirror the energy of her words. The act of stepping forward when making a strong point or pausing for emphasis became deliberate choices. With each iteration, her expression evolved, becoming a channel for the emotions she felt within. Yet the underlying tension remained palpable. An internal dialogue persisted as she stood before the mirror, running through her presentation repeatedly. Each time, her reflection emanated a different kind of fierceness. Still, an insistent voice reminded her of her insecurities, whispering doubts that her authenticity might not resonate with the judges. As she moved gracefully through her gestures, she took a pause, looking directly into her own eyes. What if my vulnerability is what sets me apart? The question hung in the air, pregnant with possibility. If she could embrace her imperfections, she could deliver a performance that didn't just seek approval but truly connected with others. A new realization surged within her. This competition was not a fortress meant to protect her. It was a battleground where authenticity could be her mightiest weapon. What she revealed could empower not just herself but those who would hear her story, simply by existing with all its flaws. With competition day looming ever closer, Sarah sensed a shift in the atmosphere around her. The weight of expectations transformed into a call to action, a responsibility to represent not just herself but the struggle and resilience of those who could not stand in a courtroom to fight for their stories. As she absorbed this new understanding, Sarah felt an electrifying charge inside her, carrying her forward. The moment was approaching when she would have to step onto that stage, wielding her voice as if it could unearth the very fabric of justice woven through her arguments. Just then, a sudden thought struck her. What if this journey into revealing herself could lead her to an unexpected ally in the courtroom? The morning sun filtered through the cafe window, its warm glow contrasting sharply with the chill of Sarah's uncertainty. As she settled into her usual corner, a half-drunk cup of coffee cooling beside her, she opened her laptop, glaring at the blank screen. Today was the day she had promised herself to reach out for feedback, a step she had both dreaded and anticipated. The challenge before her was palpable. While her preparations advanced, the notion of sharing her work with others stirred an age-old sense of vulnerability. Each keystroke felt laden with fear. The potential for criticism loomed larger than the promise of growth. Yet, deeply buried within her was a flicker of curiosity. What insight could arise from collaboration? With a resolute sigh, she typed an email to her professor, requesting a brief meeting. As she hit send, she experienced a rush of relief mixed with trepidation. A strange blend of liberation and anxiety. The response was swift. Professor Lee, known for his sharp intellect but also his nurturing approach, replied enthusiastically, inviting her to the office hours later that afternoon. Sarah's emotions tangled as she prepared for the meeting, pacing her small apartment, rehearsing potential questions and scenarios. In the quiet confines of his office, Professor Lee's presence was a soothing balm. He leaned back in his chair, encouraging her to present her findings and arguments with an attentive nod. As she spoke, weaving in her most poignant narrative threads alongside her legal concepts, she noticed how his eyebrows knitted in concentration, a clear signal of his engagement. Then came the moment she awaited the critique. Instead of merely pointing out weaknesses, he highlighted her strengths first, affirming the emotional depth she had infused into her arguments. But he also voiced some constructive criticism, suggesting she tighten her focus, elevating clarity over emotional narrative when needed. It was all about balance, he explained, pushing her to think like a strategist. A flood of mixed emotions coursed through her. While she noted the tough feedback, Professor Lee's words rang clear. Vulnerability is powerful, but clarity in communication is paramount. As they navigated through her presentation framework, insights began to crystallize, reshaping her approach. After the session, Sarah left feeling revitalized. The meeting had fortified her belief in collaboration as a pivotal element of growth. She resolved not to limit herself to her own perspectives but to seek out more dialogues and critiques, especially from people who challenged her. That evening, she gathered a small group of fellow law students, proposing a peer review session. Utilizing their diverse viewpoints could sharpen her arguments even further, turning her fears into stepping stones. As they agreed, enthusiasm overtook anxiety. Days turned into a synergy of ideas, and Sarah's confidence began to transform. With each constructive debate and discussion, her voice grew stronger, more assured. The realization struck her that sharing her vulnerabilities did not expose flaws. Instead, it illuminated paths for collective improvement. But amidst this uplifting journey, a flicker of doubt remained. Would this evolution genuinely resonate in front of judges? Would they recognize her effort amid the tide of polished competitors? On the brink of competition day, she stood in front of her reflection once more. Today, however, the confidence in her gaze was palpable. The combination of vulnerability and strategic clarity had birthed a new version of herself. As she rehearsed her lines, a sudden thought intruded. Who else might be fighting their own battle behind the scenes, seeking to find the right words to share their stories? In this realization, a seed of an idea germinated, one that could connect her to others and amplify her message. It could be just the unexpected ally she had been searching for. But bringing this vision forth would require courage, possibly leading to further revelations about her capabilities. With determination in her heart, she stepped away from the mirror, fully aware that the next step was looming on the horizon, as powerful as the competition itself. Would embracing this perspective lead her closer to her goal or into uncharted territory? The wooden floor creaked beneath Sarah's feet as she paced the cafe, her mind racing in anticipation of competition day. The air was thick with the aromas of roasted coffee beans and fresh pastries. Yet the sweet scent did little to ease her mounting anxiety. She could almost hear the collective buzz of her peers outside, ready to step into their own version of the spotlight. Emboldened by her recent peer sessions, Sarah decided to reach out to her group one more time, sensing there was still more growth to extract from their collaboration. Perhaps they could brainstorm an initiative that encapsulated her vision, a way to weave their stories together into something larger, a collective narrative that would resonate deeply with others. However, she was struck by a wave of uncertainty. What if her idea fell flat? What if they didn't see the value in it? These thoughts gnawed at her as she took a seat at her favorite corner table. Taking a deep breath, she began drafting an email, outlining her proposal for a collaborative project. A podcast series of sorts, where each student could share their legal perspectives and personal experiences. It would be more than just a showcase of skills. It would be a humanization of the legal landscape. After sending the email, Sarah felt a slight release of tension, but apprehension lingered. The vulnerability of putting forth her idea weighed heavily on her. Unable to shake the doubt, she revisited her interactions during the peer review sessions, recalling moments when her ideas had inspired enthusiasm. She was beginning to understand that courage wasn't just about diving into the competition. It was also about presenting one's thoughts and inviting others to react. Minutes later, her phone chimed. Responses flew in, bouncing off one another with vigor, a confirmation that her peers were as eager as she was to explore this uncharted territory. Consulting the specifics of her plan began to feel like more than just an exercise. It became a catalyst for deepening connections and fortifying her understanding of collaboration. Yet, a nagging fear remained. Would they truly appreciate the emotional depth she envisioned in their stories? Could she lead them in a way that balanced personal expression with the analytical rigor required in law? Turning to the back of her mind, she contemplated the judges, men and women molded by their own histories, experiences, and biases. Would they relate to her vision or simply dismiss it? Ruminating over these questions, Sarah sought solace in Professor Lee's words about balance. Perhaps that was the key, melding vulnerability with clarity, not just in her arguments but also in this proposal. She grabbed her laptop again, crafting a message that invited each participant to not only share their experiences but articulate their reasoning and lessons learned. As she pressed send once more, a sense of union began to unfurl within her. She recognized that this endeavor was more than just an academic project. It was an exploration of their intertwined journeys, each with its own hurdles and victories. Yet, as excitement began to surface, so did whispers of her own inadequacies as a leader. The looming competition day approached with relentless speed, a constant reminder of the stakes resting on her shoulders. Despite her growing network of support, the isolation she had felt during previous competitions settled like a fog around her thinking. Who was she in this chaotic swirl? Could she truly guide others while contending with her own doubts? Suddenly, she was reminded of a significant moment during her peer sessions, the first time her voice broke with emotion, and instead of judgment, her peers had embraced her honesty with kindness and validation. Feeling the weight of impending judgment, she hesitated, then thought, what if I turned my vulnerability into a strength? Ending the night with this perspective laid the groundwork for a powerful revelation, the possibility that her willingness to open up could not only transform her own experience, but also encourage others to dive deeper. Thus, with her heart racing and the inkling of a new purpose brewing, she took a moment to envision how this journey could unfold beyond the confines of competition. Embracing the notion that she could, at last, harness and embrace her fears as fuel for a broader conversation, a growing resolve blossomed within her. As she shut her laptop, her eyes scanned the cafe's bustling scene, a metaphorical reflection of her aspirations. The next day loomed competition day, yes, but also a chance to reclaim her narrative and step into her emerging role as a leader. Just then, a message pinged on her phone, a reminder that now, more than ever, forging connections could summon a clarity that transcended her own uncertainties. But what if the very act of sharing her story invited the prospect of unforeseen challenges? Would her transparency empower not only her competitors but also herself? The competition day finally arrived, And as Sarah stood behind the curtain of the mock courtroom, she felt the weight of expectations settle upon her shoulders like a powerful mantle. The feeling was both exhilarating and daunting. The echo of her classmates' supportive words still resonated in her ears, reminders of their shared journey of growth that now fueled her resolve. As she stepped into the courtroom, she felt the fluorescent lights warm her skin and illuminate her path. The meticulous notes she had prepared clung tightly to her thoughts, ready to be unleashed. She both anticipated and dreaded the scrutiny of the judges, knowing their perspectives could bridge her ambitions to reality or drastically reshape her journey into self-doubt. With her heart racing, Sarah launched into her opening statement, weaving together her research with the stories she had unearthed in preparation. She didn't just present the case. She infused it with the real-life stakes tied to every legal argument, touching on the essence of the individuals represented within the law. Each word felt like a brushstroke painting the picture of justice intertwined with humanity. As she spoke, she began to sense the jury's engagement. The flickering of interest in their eyes ignited something deep within her. The power of vulnerability became an unexpected ally, a conduit bridging the gap between knowledge and emotion. Sarah wasn't merely delivering facts. She was advocating. Moreover, the collaborative spirit she had fostered with Rebecca transformed their rivalry into shared ambition. As her partner stood beside her, ready to support her every move, Sarah found herself enveloped in a newfound confidence. The pride in her voice mirrored the undeniable shift she had witnessed within herself, a testament to her evolution from doubt to advocacy. Midway through, Sarah paused for effect. She glanced at the judges, allowing the weight of her narrative to hang in the air. In that instant, she realized that this was a culmination of her journey, a synthesis of all the fears, the growth, and the relentless pursuit of self-confidence she had chased. Rising tides of hope surged within her, buoyed by the understanding that she had not only prepared to compete, but had also stepped into her own power as a future attorney. Finally, with her closing argument, Sarah delivered her most heartfelt plea. In the law, we wield the power to change lives, she declared, her voice unwavering. But it's also our responsibility to remember the individuals behind the cases we present. Those stories are what the law is truly made of. As she concluded, applause rippled through the mock courtroom. The judges shared glances of appreciation, consideration of the narrative force that had radiated from Sarah. It was more than just a competition to them. It became a moment of transformation for a young woman who had once been entangled by self-doubt. In the days that followed, those accolades became reality. Sarah discovered she had not only garnered recognition for her performance but had also earned a position as a lead intern at a reputable law firm in her city, an offer that came as a testament to her growth. Colleagues now approached her with respect, recognizing her competence and courage. Sarah's journey had morphed from a timid existence to one radiating solid confidence. She had conquered the fears that had long plagued her and accomplished a pivotal professional gateway that she thought was out of reach. Her personal and professional goals now coalesced into a clear vision, one that mirrored the aspirations she had once thought unattainable. Looking back, she could clearly see how each challenge had become an opportunity for growth, a chance to transform the shadows of self-doubt into pillars of strength and resilience. As she continued to share her story with her peers, offering mentorship and support, she recognized the profound impact of community and the need for self-advocacy. She had truly broken free from the restraints of insecurity, embracing her evolving identity as more than just a student but a powerful advocate ready to tackle the complexities of the legal world. The once trembling mother, engulfed by self-doubt, had become a formidable force. Sarah was not merely surviving. She was thriving, with an unwavering belief in herself and an understanding that her journey would continue to inspire those around her. Now, it's your turn to embark on your journey of self-discovery. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and encourage more content like this. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful story of overcoming. You need to support the channel, and this is the moment to show it. Don't wait even one more second. Be part of this journey.